All right, people, welcome to yet another episode. In this episode, what we want to look at is why is it that you can't remember anything that you studied or learned as a student? Quite often many students, complain, I've learned, I did the learning, but I can't remember, why? Why is this possible? Well, I show you that in this video. So one of the reasons why, you can study and still you struggle to remember, when you get to the exam situation. One, maybe you are studying under a lot of distractions. There are so many distractions there. Some of you students these days are distracted by your phones. The smartphone, you go to social media, you go to browse on the internet, and all of this will serve as, a distraction. You learn at a place where there's some musical, there's a lot of noise in the background. All these things can be distractions, when you are studying and interfere with your memory. When you are learning, you need peace, you need silence. In a quiet environment, you need an environment where your focus is on nothing else but on what you are studying. So make sure you take away distractions from your learning situation, and therefore, when there are no distractions, of course, your brain can focus better on what you are learning, and therefore, you'll be able to remember. Another thing, that prevents you from remembering what you studied is poor study habits. So many students now have poor study habits for sure. Some of you will just learn just before the test. You will decide not to learn anything, but wait until the last minute to learn. When you do that, you disturb your brain, because the brain needs time to process the information that you are learning, to store it in your long-term memory for you so that you can remember when you need it. But if you give that short time, last-minute learning before your test, before your exam, then that is definitely going to impact on your performance and prevent you from doing well. So you need more time to study before the test, before the exam, and that is how you can do better. Another thing that can really prevent you from remembering what you've learned is academic stress. When you go through so much stress academically, stress has been shown to impact on memory. Stress has been shown to lead to forgetting and make it difficult for you to remember whatever you've studied. So you have to find ways to deal with academic stress, making sure you exercise regularly, having a balanced diet, making sure you get adequate amounts of sleep. All this can help you to deal with stress and therefore make you remember the things that you've learned. Another thing that can also prevent you or disturb you when it comes to remembering what you studied is lack of sleep or sleep deprivation. Quite a number of students who learn at the last minute will decide to learn the whole night before a test, thinking that when they do that, they would perform better. But actually, that's actually on the reverse for you. When you study throughout the night without sleeping, it's difficult for you to remember the test situation. Now, I've tried it before. It didn't work for me because, hey, sleep is actually needed. After you studied, you need to sleep so that your memory can consolidate the memory, so that your memory or your brain can consolidate. Sleep helps your brain to consolidate memories, to process the information and then keep it in the long-term memory so that you can remember when you need it. So no matter what, when you study, give yourself some time to sleep before a test or before an exam, and that will be the sure way for you to remember whatever you studied. Another thing that prevents you from remembering what you studied is test anxiety. When you become so anxious about the test, you are so afraid, you don't know which questions will come in the exam, and you become so anxious. That anxiety has been shown to interfere with your memory and therefore prevent you from remembering what you have to study or what you've studied. So make sure that you are taking test anxiety from your life. And one way to deal with test anxiety will be to learn ahead of time. Give yourself more time to study before the test. When you have more time to study, your test anxiety is lower. But when you study at the last minute before the test anxiety is quite high because you're afraid that you might not have time to study everything. Those things will come in the exam, and then you might have not learned it or learned to that point, and that is why your test anxiety will be high, and therefore interfere with your remembrance when you go to the exam situation. So these are some of the reasons why, you find it difficult to remember what you studied. Deal with them, and then you can remember better what you've studied and do better in your exams. So another thing that can also prevent you from remembering what you studied is lack of interest and lack of motivation. So when you don't have interest in what you are studying, it's difficult for your brain to really focus on what you are learning. Some people say, I don't have interest in mathematics, I don't have interest in this subject. When you don't have an interest in something, it's difficult for you to keep it in memory. Another thing that also prevents you from remembering what you studied is lack of motivation. Many students lack the motivation to study. You have to find why you are not motivated to study and then find ways to improve your motivation for studying. For example, when you have a lot of financial difficulties as a student, your motivation to study is low. You need to find a solution around that. So lack of interest, lack of motivation, is something that can also prevent you from focusing on what you are learning and therefore be able to do well and therefore remember the things that you studied. So these are some of the tips that prevent you from remembering what you studied. Work around them and you can improve your remembrance of what you studied and therefore do better in your test and your exam. Subscribe to this channel. I'll see you in the next episode.